Actually a very short agenda, which is really good. So is 1:02 and I'm calling the meeting to order. We have the first item on the agenda is a resolution regarding applications. Yes, John.
Sorry, Commissioner. Do you want me to take roll call?
Go ahead. Yes.
Thank you. Cindy Butts.
Here.
Wendy Clark. Heidi DeWeingart can't be with us today. Kylie Goslin let us know that she couldn't join us. Commissioner Mosquera Bruno.
Yes.
Lisa Tepper Bates.
Yes.
Greg Ugalde. Greg, I see you, but I can't hear you yet.
Present.
Okay,
thank you. I have a new computer system set up and I can't get it to unmute, but we'll get it.
You got there. Very good. We do have a quorum in attendance.
Thank you, John. So Terry Nash is going to present the resolution regarding the applications for capital magnet funds for fiscal year 2023 award. Terry?
Yes, thank you. So good afternoon. The resolution and recommendation before you is to approve CHFA's application for a Capital Magnet Fund CMF Program Year 2023 grant award in an amount that will reflect the estimated need as indicated by the pipeline of multifamily housing development applications in the approximate amount of $6 million. Staff also seeks approval of an allocation of available funds in an amount not to exceed $6 million to match the anticipated CMF award. So by way of background, the CMF is a program of the Community Development Financial Institutions, or CDFI Fund of the U.S. Department of the Treasury. Through the CMF, the CDFI Fund competitively awards funds to CDFIs and qualified nonprofit housing organizations, including certain state housing finance authorities. These awards can be used to finance affordable housing activities, as well as related economic development activities and community service facilities. The objective is to attract private capital to economically distressed communities, including underserved rural areas. Funding for the CMF comes from allocations made by Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac and varies from year to year. This year, the CDFI Fund plans to award up to $320.6 million in grants under the published 2023 round NOFA. The statutory cap on the award per applicant is approximately $48 million, but applicants in reality receive far less. CHFA was awarded $3 million in CMF in the fiscal year 2020, and we have identified transactions for all of those funds, including the CHFA match, which we plan to commit before the deadline. Interest is high in the development community. They're starting to be a lot more comfortable with this source of funding, and we anticipate quickly allocating any CMF funds awarded along with CHFA's match. So CMF funds may be used for development, rehabilitation, preservation, and purchase of affordable housing that's targeted to low, very low, and extremely low income families in areas of economic distress. New this year, the 2023 NOFA expands eligible geographic areas to additionally include high opportunity areas, and that is as is defined by the GSEs. Interestingly, CHFA's QAP is cited in their definition of areas of opportunity. Developments financed using either 9% or 4% LIHTC will qualify if certain conditions related to the geographic location and proposed population served are met. So CHFA proposes to submit the application supporting deeply affordable housing units in that LIHTC program. We were very successful in having done that the last time and anticipate that we will exhaust funds quickly. The CMF funds must be awarded must be used to leverage housing and economic development activities at least 10 times the size of the award amount. The proposed application would include CHFA's investment, allocating a matching award of up to $6 million. And this would further enhance the leverage that CHFA is ensuring. With this enterprise level allocation, LIHTC equity, and other private funding, we anticipate our private leverage will be a highly competitive approximate ratio of 1 to 15 CMF to private funds. So in summary, staff recommends that the board approve the application for a CMF 2023 program grant. And if awarded, CHFA would also allocate up to $6 million of available funds as matching dollars to create a $12 million affordable housing fund to support the creation and preservation of multifamily rental housing across the state of Connecticut. With your approval.
Thank you, Terry. Can I have a motion to approve the resolution presented by Terry?
I'll move.
Second,
Thank you. Any questions?
Yeah, Commissioner, I'm just wondering, and Terry, you probably covered this, but would you just either point me to the section or explain the logic? Why is 6 million the right number?
Well, in general, we applied last year for $4 million, not last year, 2020, for $4 million, received 3. And we identified that 4 million, and we are identifying up to 6 million this time for 2 reasons. One, that we're looking at the pipeline of projects that could utilize this funding. Timing is critical. When you get the award, you have to be able to have projects identified, get them out, the funds out with a commitment, and then have the developments completed within a 5-year cycle. So where it would be lovely to be able to apply for, say, twice that amount, we don't know that we have the ability to meet all the different layers that are required under this program in terms of population, the right area, the right mix, the right leveraging funds. Public leverage doesn't count. So we've identified tentatively up to $6 million. And when we have a final count on our pipeline, we'll know, the number that we will actually apply for. But it's not to exceed, we say not to exceed the $6 million, because we are also looking for a match that would be equal to our application amount.
Thank you, Terry. Any other questions?
and Terry, just to clarify that a little bit, so that's where the 12 million total comes from when you said you combine the matching. Okay, so
Yes.
that would be up to, so in the end, if it turns out to be 5.5, then the total's 11.
Correct.
Because you're
Yes.
always going to get them out. Okay, got it.
Exactly.
So we're matching 100% basically, and that will help us probably on the application for points.
It does.
Mhm. Yes.
All right.
So if
Go
we
ahead.
asked, if we asked for 4 and got 3, do we think that we'll get the 6? Is there just more funds available, or are we doing the allocation, or what would make us eligible for 6 this time?
It's, we're looking at our pipeline. And so
Okay.
that's what helps us to define.
Oh, I just got
what amount we
confused
want.
with the we asked for 4 and got 3 part.
No, we
Oh,
asked for
that's
6.
okay.
We're going to ask for 6. We're
No,
hopeful.
No, I'm sorry. I was related to the last time. She
I
was reviewing
understand.
what happened before. There was no question
Yeah.
about now.
So with the $4 million and with every other applicant, the CMF fund tries to spread the funds as far as across the country as they possibly can. And so they tend to not give you exactly what you've asked for, but something a little bit less so that they could spread the money farther.
Okay,
So we asked for 4,
that
we
was
got
my
3.
question.
Yes, exactly.
And probably Terry also, you want to show that you utilize 100%,
Yes,
right? These funds
exactly.
previously. So is you might have a better chance to get a little more because you met all the goals. In many other states, it didn't meet it. So it gives that a
Exactly.
chance to maybe get a little more.
Yes.
Any other questions? All right, Dawn, could you please do roll call?
Cindy Bucks,
Yes,
Commissioner Mascara Bruno,
Yes.
Lisa Tupper Bates,
Aye.
Greg Agalde.
Aye.
The vote passes unanimously.
Thank you. Our next item on the agenda, this is great. We only have 2. I don't know if it's great or not, but is the approval of the minutes for the mortgage committee from January 24th, 2023. If I can have a
Motion
motion.
to approve?
Got a second?
I'll second it.
Any questions? All right, Dawn, could you do roll call, please?
Of course. Cindy Butts,
Yes.
Commissioner Mascara Bruno,
Yes.
Lisa Tupper Bates,
Aye.
Greg Ugalde.
Aye.
Vote passes unanimously.
Thank you. On the reports, we have the homeownership report and multifamily activities. So Lisa Hensley is going to give us the the homeownership report.
Good morning. If it's okay, I'm going to have Kayla Giordano go ahead and give the report today.
Okay.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Lisa. So the homeownership report, this is the first one that's going to be covering 2023 data. Last month, we gave you the summary for 2022. So I just want to mention upfront that since it's so early in the year, this report is only going to be covering January because that's what we have the first, full numbers for. So as we go throughout the year, every month, giving an update, this report will definitely become a little more meaningful and allow us to sort of compare over time. So here's a quick agenda. We'll go through the first mortgage number, some lender activity, and demographic information. On occasion throughout the year, we'll also provide a market update here and there to sort of see what's going on in the broader housing market and how that might impact CHFA. I wasn't intending to give a market update this go around. However, right before this meeting, the research department was updating some of our data sources, which includes one record of single family inventory numbers in Connecticut. And I wanted to share what we saw in that update, and that as of January, Connecticut has the lowest amount of single family inventory that we've seen since we've been tracking the data back to 2018. So there are under 5,000 available single family properties that are up for sale right now. So we'll be watching this as the year goes on, particularly as we approach the spring home buying season, to see how availability of inventory is going to be affecting, CHFA and then the wider housing market and impacting potential home buyers. So with that, we can tap forward on. Thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to note, I think it's under 4,000. It's like 3,500.
Yeah. So
yeah, it's really incredibly terrible. And with some of the legislative proposals right now, we may not. I'm sure Greg can say the same thing from the home builders. It's going to be a really rough session, depending on, what happens with some of the bills. If rental properties can be built, if affordable housing can be built.
Yeah, it's certainly a challenge, and for in many regards, right? The impact of low inventory is obviously affecting us as an industry, but also potential first-time home buyers. With lower inventory, even in the last few years, we've seen that driving up of prices as people are competing against one another for really limited properties. So we'll certainly be keeping an eye on it as the year goes on and provide updates. So as far as our first mortgage loan delinquency, these numbers are pretty standard historically for what we've seen at CHFA. Right now, 92% of our loans are active, and that next largest grouping is only 30 days delinquent. So we would expect to see a lot of those resolved. 2 foreclosures have been initiated thus far in 2023. Yeah. As far as our production numbers, 2023 has started off with a bang compared to 2022. So far this year, we've purchased 245 loans for just over $34.5 million. Compared to this time last year, CHFA has increased its dollar volume of purchases by 65%. As far as who's originating these loans for us, First World Mortgage and Total Mortgage Services continue to be our top lenders. Something that research and homeownership are collaborating on right now is digging into this data a little further to see who are our most popular loan officers, who are the real estate agents that we're working with and their agencies, just so that we can see as the year goes on, how might we be better able to collaborate, what are areas that we could improve in. So all of that to come later this year. As far as our down payment program, we've seen even larger growth this year, 235 DAP loans so far for a total of a little under $3.5 million. In terms of dollar volume, we've increased that over last year by 200% compared to January. And obviously, time to own is a factor in that, but our just general production is up farther than it has been the past few years. And speaking of time to own, which is the next slide. Oh, sorry, one more, thank you. So time to own so far, since the program's inception, we've had a little over 1,200 reservations for this funding in an amount of just over $37 million. The average reservation amount being at about $30,549. What we've seen with this program is that it really allows for lower income borrowers to access homeownership. In that bottom chart there, you'll see time to own compared to all of CHFA's lending that's not time to own. And borrowers who utilize time to own have a median income that's almost $16,000 less than those who do not use time to own. These borrowers are also younger and able to purchase higher priced homes. And as we mentioned at the beginning of this presentation, with low inventory, with prices being driven up as a result, that's even more critical to increase the purchase power of our low and moderate income buyers. I also wanted to point out that one of the original intents of the time to own program was to help potential home buyers have housing choice to live where they want, and if they want to access communities of higher opportunity. And we have seen that so far, with 30% of our time to own reservations occurring in very high or high opportunity tracks. The next couple slides I'll go through quickly, considering it's so early in the year. We don't have a ton of data, but so far, Harford County leads in terms of the number of loans that we've done geography-wise, and this is pretty typical for what we see throughout CHFA's portfolio year over year. And then the next slide looks at our gender demographic breakdown, pretty even split between male and female headed households. And then as far as race and ethnicity, so far this year, 48% of our loans went to those who identified as a minority. Compared to January of last year, we have seen more Asian and Black borrowers. Compared to last year, our Hispanic borrowers are down slightly, but considering it's so earlier in the year, we would expect that this will rise throughout the quarter.
Kayla, similar to the previous data sets where you could compare to the non-time to own cohort, right? That was in the previous slide 2 back. Are we able to do that here?
Yeah, we absolutely can. I know that we have done that for a couple of other presentations, so I can definitely pull that in for next month's report. Let me just make a note for myself. But yeah, we can certainly include that. Okay, any questions? No? Okay.
So
like to
Kayla, I think.
Oh, go ahead, Greg. I'll go after you.
Oh, thanks, Lisa. So I was just going to point out, just following up on what Cindy said as well. I think this year, especially with all the legislative proposals, and it's almost like on every bill we have to comment on how the supply side is just so drastically affecting numbers. Everything from the rental cap concerns that people are trying to bring up. If we don't get the supply side fixed, I mean, all these numbers get distorted, and it will be interesting to see if some of these the reports that we work with in the information that we're able to include, a few different statistics might be helpful when we compare numbers in how the actual supply is affecting too. It's a little tricky to get in and dig through the data, but we're going to start seeing year over year numbers of being drastically decreased after we went through the bidding wars. And it's so difficult to find housing both on the rental and buy side, ownership side. It's difficult now for us to see overshooting with draconian legislation. I think that those are some of the things we're going to see.
Yeah, absolutely. And in terms of how, how supply is impacting the market and where the needs are, several years ago now, CHFA put together a housing needs assessment, and I believe DOH did their own housing needs assessment as well. And our department, the Research, Marketing, and Outreach department, is right now undertaking an update of that housing needs assessment. And so we'll be assessing, where the supply gaps are, obviously across the board, but where are they, felt the most, and what are some areas of opportunity that we might be able to pursue.
Yeah, I think that housing needs is very apparent. It's like, how can you do affordable housing if it's not affordable to build housing, or to deliver housing? How can we have a rental market if we don't have public policies that make people willing to rent their properties? We can't get people willing to rent, even if they have a second house, they're not willing to do it now, for all sorts of reasons. But I have all sorts of demographic and statistical information for Connecticut. I don't know why I never thought to share it, but I will send it out to you, because it's everything from, like now there's many more 26 to 34-year-olds living with their parents than ever before. For the first time in history, most people used to move 10 to 15 miles away. Last year, they moved 50 miles away. And that is such a massive demographic switch for us. And a lot of that is people moving from New York. So now we have the New York workforce competing against our Connecticut workforce for those same homes. And we're less expensive. It's staggeringly expensive for us. It's cheaper for them. But it's taking away a lot of our available units. But I have all sorts of statistics I can, they're publicly available. I mean, that we don't have them posted, but I'll send them to you, because I do think it might be helpful to you as you look at this. But Lisa, I'm glad you asked a question about the overlay. I was wondering that too. Can we see if there's a change in diversity with the program based on who's moving into the high opportunity areas? If that's any change from what we've seen with other statistics, and it's not statistics we have, but other statistics available from other entities.
Yeah, no, that's right, Cindy. And I think you and Greg have raised really important questions about the alarms that should be sounding about supply generally. But with regard to the data here, I wonder, Kayla, what additional creative efforts the team is thinking about making to get out the word, because I don't think you see much, or at least I haven't seen much in Connecticut's sort of mainstream media about this program and the important impacts, right? Lower age, diversity of owners, buying more expensive homes, which is really important because the prices have gone up. It seems like, I don't know why there hasn't been a piece in the Connecticut Mirror talking about how this is a small but mighty program starting to make a dent, right? In an important way. So I'm hoping you have some creative outreach on the horizon, because I think one of CHFA's opportunities is that a lot of what we do that's successful is really quiet. And you could drive more demand and get more of those potential buyers aware if there is, some additional outreach, which you're probably thinking about, but just wanted to hear about that and what thoughts.
So Lisa, to that point, together CHFA and DOH is working on a marketing piece, because it's part of our governor, because we put in money. We started in June, and really the program has been very successful, even with the lack and the increase in prices. And he has another $100 million. So we are working together on a piece showing results, because you can now, it's not like, oh, we're gonna do something. It's like, hey, it's happening, and this is what the statistics shows, pretty successful. So yes, we are doing something like that. But thank you. Kyla, that was your presentation. You have any more?
Yep, that's it. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? All right. Well, thank you.
Of course.
And the multifamily report.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'll go over the multifamily report, and if you have any questions or suggestions to the format, always welcome. So first off is a development spotlight. This month we are spotlighting Murray on Main. It's a project in Willimantic, and it's a gut rehab of a of a vacant historic departmental store. So it has a lot of SHPO credits, and it's a 16-unit family development. All of the units are for 50 and 60 AMI income bands. 14 of them are have project-based subsidy. Here are some pictures. It's always good to see pictures. It's about 45% complete, and we are projecting a final closing around the end of year. Next one. So this one's overview of a multi-family pipeline. And note this data is for, it does not include the current competitive 9% round applications and any hybrid applications that we may have gotten. So we have a TDC of over 2,000 million. Total developments in our pipeline are 96, with total units little over 7,000. And most of these units are affordable, as you see in the top 3 slides. We are picking up pace with rising interest rates, inflation. Our projects are experiencing, financing costs, higher financing costs, and that's impacting the closing timeline. We have a current 9% round under review. We've received 18 applications. We have about 75 applications open under the HTCC awards. And we have several SSHP critical needs applications in the pipeline too. Now we'll go through some news and insights. So in late January, staff from multifamily attended training by the Corporation for Supportive Housing on Property Management. And the role of CAN network was explored, and there were developers, consultants, property managers, and service providers. And the same day, we also had a ribbon cutting for River Breeze in Shelton. It was a 9% project, and it's a 68-unit new construction residential mixed income development. 1/30th, technical services staff and other folks from multifamily participated in the quarterly discussion with contractors who work on CHFA projects. And topics included labor shortage, cost increases, stored materials, sustainable design measures. So although with the rising interest rates, we are seeing that the demand for single family and market rate are going down. So that's freeing up some labor, and it's playing us well for the cost increases and the labor shortages, but yet with the interest rates and inflation, construction costs are likely to increase. On January 31st, staff from multifamily participated in the LIHTC 101 webinar, which went over all the usual topics, the 42M, the LIHTCs, the tax credit application, and the placed in service, non-compliance and credit recapture, and all the various nuances of the tax credits. In terms of the current 9% round, we received 18 applications. 4 are in the preservation classification, and the remaining are on the new construction. Initial reviews are almost done, and we are looking to send out requests for clarifications for missing and unclear information. So we had one initial closing in January, Shiloh Garden in Stratford, and there were 2 final closings. Westbrook Village 3 in Hartford, and 1 pre-transaction critical needs, Bracedale Co-op in West Hartford. And now below is our prospective projects that would be coming to board in the coming months. All right, so this is an upcoming transaction that we are looking to get to board in the coming months. It's Northside Terraces in Torrington. The owner mortgagor is Northside Terraces. Kristen Anderson is the person, and it's formed by Community Builders. That's the developer. The scope is moderate rehab. It's a family kind of housing with 92 units. And the sources of funding are LIHTC 4%, HTC seeds, DOH funds, and CHFA TEBs. Here is a site plan and a few pictures to share with the group. That's about it. Any questions? Any suggestions?
Thank you, Seema.
One of the interesting things, and I think this is kind of for almost for a retreat topic. I find that many of us are able to discuss and talk up, in effect, our CHFA efforts in all of the great work that's being done, but we should discuss if there were points that we could start outlining and setting groundwork for requests and for where we would like to see things go. I think we may be able to be helpful in that area, because I mean, when you look at these numbers and just a couple of these examples, I mean, it's so expensive in this state. And if we don't have these things in place and increase them as much as possible, where it's just a never-ending climb, uphill climb. So I think that the more we know and as educated as we can be on what type of asks would be helpful, I think we should look into that.
Yes, absolutely. I will note that down. And you're talking in terms of the cost per unit, the construction costs and the like?
Yes, and I'm talking about whenever we're talking to legislators, whenever we're talking to, I mean, even banks that are looking to find a path forward to leverage their funds as much as possible, but just different tools that we might advocate for, and what you all on a daily basis look at and say, if we could free something over here up, or if we could get more funds in this area, I just think it would be helpful to have those discussions.
Yeah, Greg, and so you saw I don't know if you have seen the governor's budget, and the governor's budget for the 2 years, right, is the $300 million, which is the regular business that we do with deep, affordable, supportive housing. But we also have another $200 million for workforce housing, which is one of the things that CHFA, the staff, is inquiring more, because we need to do it differently than our regular affordable housing. We don't want to pair up with any other federal funding, so that we can work with, as you mentioned, the lenders, where they have in the pipeline and where do we have those early wins that we can really put resources there as a subordinate debt, where we can only charge, like, let's say 0% interest rate. So helping the economy, because the interest rate is lower doing market rate with workforce housing, and stimulate that while we also do our other regular deep target affordable housing. And then we also have that $100 million for the time to own to continue with the homeownership, which is something that I would like to talk to the Builders Association, how we can, I mean, if there is possibility that we can help in that area too, for new construction or homeownership.
Good. See, those are the types of things too, because
Yeah, that's exciting.
Yeah, and when we sit here and look, you could tell both Cindy and I, you can hear it in our voices on this call. We're coming into 2023 after what was, like we said, bidding wars and stuff over the past the past year for sure, and even more than that. But we have serious concerns now when you start looking at the distances, again, all the things we've been saying. that people are going to have to travel to get to the work centers and different living patterns if we don't start battling this. And we always talk about it, right? Whenever we look at the CHFA numbers and what it costs per unit, the averages, and we're saying, wait, how can 400,000 be affordable, right? And we just see these patterns. And I think that the more, and I have to tell you, I see nationally what the numbers look like and what other housing finance authorities are doing and the hurdles that they're trying to get over. And we're light years ahead on some of our efforts. But the more that we can do and lead the way, the better off things are going to be.
Exactly, and that's some of. I mean, I brought that to the governor's office, and you see, the governor really wants to incentivize more housing, both for the market rate, for the workforce housing, and also for our homeownership. So he doesn't want to leave anybody behind. So we are working. CHFA staff has been meeting with some of the bankers. We did an initial meeting. I did an initial meeting with some of the bankers to see what they thought about that possibility before we really encouraged the governor to do this. And everybody's excited because the opportunity to have flexible funds, not subsidy for a market rate housing, right? But lower, I mean, debt that is subordinate to the banks, because we want to make sure that the banks utilize their resources, but is perhaps a 1-2% interest rate, which will help alleviate some of that concerns. So we will have, we need to be ready within the next, before the session ends, but we wanted to be ready. So we have been starting this work from before, and they have been very, CHFA staff have been awesome because they are taking the initiative so that we can move this along.
Yeah,
we will be visiting also the Westchester Modular Company to see also what they're doing, how they're doing, because some for-profit developers are using them as to bring the panels, so that's how they can really move the construction along. And we want to make sure that we got that combination, right? That we can be flexible. So the tech service from CHFA and my tech service people will be leading that meeting on the 28th, because we're looking at it. We have to look at different angles.
That's right. You know, and so the whole building systems industry, right? Everything from panelization to modular to basically the concept of having things delivered to help with workforce pressures and the lack of labor, all these things. And there's, I think that Connecticut, once we get through some of these transportation issues, I mean, the more the merrier, the more that we can bring in, because if we start being known as a state that can provide housing, reasonable housing for businesses, this is the time where people are looking to take advantage of that. And the governor's budget, as you say, certainly has people's attention.
Yep, absolutely. So it's very exciting.
And I'm thinking as the Inflation Reduction Act is another thing that I've been closing very regularly. And I think a lot of incentives in there will really support our affordable housing sector, and especially on the sustainability side. And I'm hoping to see some, bridge loan products out in the market to get them, the money on the front end of the projects, because a lot of these incentives would come afterward, but somehow some bridge loans available to facilitate all that would help our sector.
Just to follow up on that too, one of the areas there that's a concern is the prevailing wage Davis-Bacon requirements. New England, we're not as set up, especially in Connecticut. We do not have a huge workforce that's able to provide that kind of labor. You've heard me say that before, but if there are hurdles that we have to get over to take advantage, as you say, of some of these great things that are in those products, we have to try to find a way to do that. But, labor's tough.
Yeah, for the workforce pool of money that we have, that doesn't have Davis-Bacon and prevailing wages, and we don't want to pair up with any federal resources. That will be just private financing that. Yeah. So yeah, we are aware of that. We are aware of the time, and also many builders, I mean, they don't really get into the business of reporting with prevailing wages and Davis-Bacon. I mean, it's just too difficult, and that's, I think, is the barrier that we have with all the builders, that we only have a handful of builders that get into the business. They have learned, and they, of course, some of them take advantage of it.
Well, we have people who don't want to do construction is the problem.
And that too. So it's
Yeah,
a
no, I mean,
combination.
if we made construction, my husband's in the construction industry. If construction was more of a focus, a great career, and so much opportunity, but we need labor in there to do all of this as well. I mean, all of it. But a lot of the regulatory costs, and part of the problem we're going to have with sustainability, and again, like Greg said, I think all of these might be good topics for discussion later. Every sustainable effort has a cost to it. And, you have to pick, because it's going to, there's going to be an impact. If you say you must have this heating system, period, well, now you've added X number of dollars onto construction. So, at least every time we do anything like that we've done it on purpose, because it's going to make it less possible for us to have housing here. So we have to, we're going to have to pick between, and you don't get both. I mean, I think a lot of times I've heard people say, well, we have to have both. It's like, well, you don't get both. You have to pick, what are you willing to give up to have something else? And if you're not, then we have to live with the outcome of it. You mean some globally Connecticut idea of what we would love to happen.
No, it's absolutely right, Cindy. Sometimes and I'm putting myself here on being a agency administrator. I want everything, right? That sounds good, but then we also saying, well, lower cost, and so we have to pick and choose, right? And where is that we're gonna ask people to do, and how we're going to support that. And that's some things we're talking also to the Green Bank, because there is also these incentives for solar panels that cost a lot more money, that cost a lot of more maintenance, especially for the affordable housing people that don't have that expertise. So if they want to have to manage that, that's going to be they don't want to do that because they don't have the capacity. So we need
and you
to
can't resell them. You can't resell stuff with solar panels. There's all sorts of issues a lot of times.
Also, yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's not just, oh, let's incentivize, right? But no, let's see who is going to manage those, who is going to provide that technical assistance, because the developer, the builders, or the nonprofits that own, they don't have that capacity. So that's right. We have to make sure that we have something there to be able to manage and make it sustainable. So that's another thing that we need to take services with the department have to talk about it in a way that is sustainable and that is feasible for those builders. And I'm aware of those things because I have been in the field. I know how difficult it becomes.
But as Greg said, Commissioner, if you could, start the conversation on how are we, if we were going to have a real conversation about how we're going to have more units here. Just start from, we need more units. What are the barriers to more units? Can we fix it or not? That conversation alone may open eyes to, really, how are we going to do it?
Yeah, and we need to look at, as Greg mentioned, where do we want to build these houses, right? Where do we have the most need, and also infrastructure? And because we can't do 169 towns, but we can certainly do in some towns and be able to provide the housing that is needed.
Well,
that would be great for the retreat. I'll make sure that Seema is taking notes. So that we can incorporate it in that.
Because the issue, where do we have the need, is going to be everywhere. I mean, I think you're going to be hard pressed at this point, even and as the months go by and the year goes by, it's going to be just more everywhere.
But again, we can't be everywhere, right? So we have to make priorities. And that's
because I keep hearing, Greg would know more, and it's a good discussion. A lot of municipalities say, well, we don't have the sewer and water lines to it. Okay, let's just put in the darn sewer and water lines. We can stop talking about, sewer and water lines or something. Maybe if that portion was solved, I don't even know what the solutions are, but something's got to be solved here.
Yeah.
It's just interesting because, to your point about that, just a couple quick things. So like, you look at something as promising as the new code provisions, when you look at, just the future of what we want homes to look like. But the new code provisions are going to add between $12,000 and $18,000 per unit, right? So these are real numbers. And when we look, I was just on a panel for the COGS, the river COGS, the 13 of them, and they're actually talking about some interesting things. And it's a little tough to get there, but where everybody chips in something, right? So the shore properties, well, they're going to be recreation and making sure that those towns can share in that. Maybe you have some place that's going to handle, expand their disposal area or sewer systems, but it's just, we have to start thinking in, so we don't have all these 169 just little different developments that are going to cost a fortune with a lot of overlap, right? So we do have to get some broad thinking. And I think it's organizations and it's groups like ours that have to be at the forefront thinking of how we can make numbers and leverage enough because everybody needs housing, right? So it's how can we get access to the most places?
Exactly.
Yeah,
Well,
and is
go
Lisa
ahead.
still on here? A point that Lisa had made about time to own in the story. The difference, not just in having the house, but the difference in the wealth for the families that end up with that program is significant. Over the long term, they're in much better shape than they would be without it over the long term, and what they're going to be able to, the whole purpose of home ownership. It's more than just, a number and a percent. I mean, it is really changing people's lives. And, with that with the enormity of the contribution is going to be life-changing for all of those families.
And Cindy, that's to the point, right, that we are starting conversations on the multifamily space. And we started that last year, remember, and you were great with the realtors to come in and give us feedback. And that's why we were able to really design a program that is easy to access and that really provides that flexibility to the home buyers. As the governor says, it doesn't cost anything to the administration, to the state, because it's piggyback with the first-time home buyer program. So it's just the same thing we're going to be doing with the multifamily, and we will have some conversations, Greg, with the Builders Association as we move along with this program that we have with the workforce housing. All right. Any other comments? Okay, so can I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Oh, so moved.
Well, second.
Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye or bye, say bye.
And say bye. Thank you very much, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you.